يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم
Radical Islam has spread throughout the Middle East. ISIS established a foothold in Arabia, Nigeria, and Somalia. Al-Qaeda's Nusra has struck in Lebanon. And Hamas has waged a significant war with Israel.
They use the same methods, they're just as butcherous, they have the same overall political objectives.
I think they are very, very canny in understanding what they need to do to create maximum havoc in Western thought.
It's not only threatening the region, it's not only threatening the Arab world, it's threatening the entire world. And it's very dangerous.
Ramallah, the West Bank, the seat of government of the Palestine Authority. We are here to meet Palestinian journalists. We cannot show them. We are planning an undercover investigation of their rival and enemy, the Radical Islamic Militia, Hamas. And Hamas will not hesitate to execute those who seriously question their authority. Palestinian rule is divided. The secular Palestine Authority governs in the West Bank. The radical Islamist Hamas rules in the Gaza Strip. According to its charter, Hamas's implacable enemy are the Jews. Hamas's prime goal is to establish Islamic rule in all of Palestine, including Israel. Our Palestinian team poses as local media and interviews Hamas leaders. Reassured they are speaking only to their own, they describe Hamas's true strategic goal: an apocalyptic war against Jews.
It's either us or them. No dealings with the Jews. I don't need the Quran to see their evil. And I say, it's either us or them.
They believe that apocalyptic war will be ushered in with the second coming of the Christian Son of God, Jesus Christ. But according to Hamas's version, Jesus does not return as a savior. He will come here to the holy Islamic shrines in Jerusalem, revered as a radical Islamic holy advocate.
Jesus and his faithful Muslims from the Al-Aqsa Mosque will come out and chase the Antichrist to the gates of Lud, as said in the Hadith. So Jesus will kill the Antichrist, so Jews will be separated and will hide between stones and trees. And then the stones and trees will call out, O Muslim, O servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him.
That theological war was put into practice in the 2014 confrontation with Israel. Hamas and its allies fired over 4,000 rockets and thousands of artillery shells indiscriminately at Israeli cities and towns. They fired the rockets from within crowded suburbs. Israelis grabbed their children and elderly parents, taking cover wherever they could. There would have been thousands of casualties if it were not for an anti-missile system that intercepted most of the rockets. To destroy the Hamas positions, Gaza suburbs like Sajaiya were pulverized in Israeli bombardment. Over 18,000 buildings were destroyed. According to UN and Israeli sources, anywhere from 1,100 to 1,400 civilians died, and about 1,100 Hamas fighters were killed. Hamas created a labyrinth of tunnels cutting under the suburbs and fired from concealed positions from within the population. The Israeli army warned inhabitants to leave. Hamas told them to stay put.
الجيش الإسرائيلي اتصل على التلفونات وقال اخلوا منطقة الشجاعية كلها الخط الشرقي واحنا الصحيح ما خليناش تمينا قاعدين لانه في اذاعات اذاعه الاقصى اذاعه القدس ومش عارف ايش ما تخلوش هذه اشاعات هذه اسطوانات مردده يعني ما تطلعوش من بيوتكم تمينا في بيوتنا لكن لما شفنا الدق جامد علينا من القذائف زي المطر صارت انجبرنا ان ندخل البيوت والله خسرنا كبيره عندي من العيله من اولاد اخويا استشهدوا بيجي 5 البيوت راحت يعني خسائر كبيرة ما حدش بيصورها.
Colonel Richard Kemp commanded British forces in Afghanistan and Iraq. He's now a military analyst.
Hamas use human shields virtually constantly. They deliberately site their weapon systems and their fighters among the civilian population. There's no doubt that the Gaza conflict did cause the deaths of a large number of civilians, as well, of course, as a large number of enemy fighters. Hamas started this conflict. They provoked Israel, they forced Israel into a position where it had no choice other than to take action to destroy the rocket launchers, to destroy the tunnels that were aimed at attacking, indiscriminately attacking and killing innocent Israeli civilians.
المقاومة كانت تجري بين البيوت يعني ما احنا كنا خايفين يهدموا البيوت فوقينا واحنا موجودين جنب المقاومة يعني كنا خايفين انهم يقصفونا والمقاومة بتجري في الشوارع فاحنا يعني اعطيناهم الفرصة يقاوموا هم كانوا يقولوا شدوا حيلكم واصمدوا بس احنا يعني ما كناش ناخذ بدل الكلام يعني كل واحد بده يحمي اولاده ويحمي بيته بده يطلع يسلم روحه يعني فيش حدا بيسلم روحه على الموت.
Yasmin and her children fled that front line. But the war tragically caught up to her. They fled to UN schools such as this one. But Hamas used these schools to store weapons and fired rockets from nearby. As the Israeli bombardment followed to flush Hamas out, her son Osama was fatally wounded.
دمي كان يسيل على وجهي من راسي اصبعي كان مقطوع يعني دوبه ماسك من ورا من تحت وبقول لي يما مالك يما ايش بتدوري يما عمي بتدوري يما يا حبيبتي يما قلت له وين اخواتك يما وين اخواتك يما يا موسى طملت لقيت راس اسامه يعني شبه مقطوع راسه مقصوص هيك يعني جمج مسكت جمجمه بايدي وحسست عليه انا حنيتها صابتني الرجفه ما تمالكتش اعصابي ما قدرتش اتمالك نفسي وحتى صراخ ما قدرتش اصرخ صرت اقول يما أسامة يما حبيبي يما أسامة يما.
Next, the perils of reporting on radical Islam.
Armed Hamas men burst into the AP bureau in Gaza City and threatened the staff over a photograph.
This is the Gaza Al Jadida school in central Gaza City.
RTV correspondent Harry Fear covered Gaza for 3 years. When he tweeted that Hamas was firing rockets from within civilian areas, he was expelled from the Gaza Strip.
For me as a journalist, passionately connected to the civilians of Gaza, having worked there for 3 years, my primary allegiance is, admittedly, to the civilians of Gaza, because they're the ones that I have even personal connections with on an intimate level. However, I don't think there's any foreign correspondent who covered that summer conflict who didn't see prima facie war crimes committed by Palestinian militant groups. I don't think that's possible. It's not logistically possible. Rockets were being fired consistently from densely populated areas.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Okay, so we're witnessing something very, very unusual in this plot of land, abandoned plot of land right next to our hotel. A blue tent has come up. It wasn't there last night. It came up just this morning, and there have been two men moving in and out of it. Now, by reasonable doubt, it's fair to guess that this is a potential Hamas rocket launching site that's being set up.
The most obvious example is when the Indian television crew went into Gaza for a short period of time. They actually managed to set up a camera which captured Hamas militants, or certainly Palestinian militants, firing rockets from Palestinian territories next to prime civilian objects.
So that's the rocket being fired today morning, a day after it was assembled at the exact spot the rocket has been fired.
Okay, so we're not actually going in there because it's been rightly pointed out to us that there could be an immediate Israeli retaliation. But you can see very clearly this is a very, very dense residential and commercial area, and therefore firing the rocket from here will obviously have serious consequences for those who live here should Israel choose to retaliate.
They depicted that, and it was broadcast crucially when they left the Gaza Strip. Of course, they feared for their own safety, not necessarily from Hamas, but from perhaps vigilantes who would harm them if they were still in the Gaza Strip when that was broadcast. So you can see there is a pressure there on journalists, a downward pressure on their freedom of operation.
Indian television was one of the very few crews out of hundreds that showed Hamas rocket launches from within populated areas. Numerous Hamas rockets misfired, falling short into Gaza, killing civilians. Italian journalist Gabriele Barbati reported on such misfirings, but only after he exited Gaza. If Barbati reported from within Gaza, he feared Hamas would harm him.
We noticed there were some reports that came out concerning Hamas firing of rockets in Gaza City. What do you know about that?
What happened there, according to witnesses, is that basically, as it happened in the past, there was a misfired rocket, because among the hundreds of rockets that Hamas fired during the war, basically a good number just fell inside Gaza. And this time, witness said that a rocket misfired and fell on this playground in Shatikam, killing the kids who were there, and basically militants came just afterwards to clean the debris.
So now,
Hamas threatened journalists not to film any of their fighters during the war. That's why these militants are blurred.
Who were behind this particular activity.
Barbati's Italian colleague captured an unusual photo of a Hamas fighter.
Some Hamas militiamen fleeing the area with weapons, but disguised as women. And many colleagues of mine said, we don't want to publish this picture because we might have problem with Hamas.
It's a tough business to cover the Middle East. There's a lot of threats.
So we just decided, you know what, I'm leaving tomorrow, so I'm giving this news tomorrow where I'm outside of here, just to be sure. So no danger to my life, no danger, no threat, just to be safe. At the end of the day, we are men before being reporters, so that was my calculation.
At one point during the war, the AP staff in the Associated Press bureau in Gaza City witnessed a rocket launch right outside the bureau and did not report it. At another point during the war, armed Hamas men burst into the AP bureau in Gaza City and threatened the staff over a photograph that an AP staffer had taken, and the AP didn't report it. So not only does Hamas know that it can successfully intimidate reporters into reporting the picture that Hamas wants, it knows that reporters will not report their own intimidation.
Once the foreign correspondents have left the Gaza Strip, It's those camera operators that could pay a dear price if they have recorded for those foreign crews coverage which is considered to be illicit of particular military operations or events. And so Palestinian operators are under enormous pressure not to work in particular areas at particular times, not to capture political realities of the unfolding conflict, be that firing of rockets near civilian objects or anything which could be, of course, detrimental to the Palestinian image.
Next, the struggle between radical Islam and secular Arab rule.
أثار تعذيب يعني شو أحكي لك كهرباء وعداوة وتكسر في جسمه تكسير في جسمه وبعد ما خلصوا يعني هيك أعدموه بالرصاص.
Hamas is not only in a religious war with Israel, it is also in a religious war against the secular rule of the Palestine Authority. In 2007, these Fatah fighters were defending the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. Hamas attacked them. It expelled Fatah and the Palestinian Authority from Gaza. Hamas then imposed radical Islamist rule over the entire Gaza Strip. Hamas ruthlessly crushes any challenge to Islamist rule to this day. Hamas executed 23 Palestinians without trial in Gaza's public squares. It branded them as Israeli collaborators. But many of those executed were in fact Fatah activists, loyal to the Palestine Authority, the enemy of Hamas. Relatives of those executed were prepared to talk to us, but only if we conceal their identities. If exposed, they could also face a Hamas firing squad.
احنا فتح وهم كانوا ناويين كل واحد اسمه يعني فتحاوي بغزة يخلصوا عليه. هذا كان هدفهم يعني. طبعا وجلسات وبعدين كانت له زيارات كل يومين بالاسبوع يروح يزوروه ويقعدوا معه عادي. اثار تعذيب يعني شو احكي لك كهرباء وعداوة وتكسر في جسمه تكسير في جسمه وبعد ما خلصوا يعني هيك أعدموه بالرصاص يعني.
أنا والدي أحد المظلومين اللي تم إعدامهم على أرض الجوازات في مدينة غزة. تعرض للتعذيب بشكل جنوني وبشكل عنصري كبير. أنا بأعدم إنسان إنه إنسان يتحرك مش إنسان مكسرات ذراعيه اليمين واليسرى ورجليه ومحروق كله محروق جسميا. كل واحد انعدم أقل شيء انطخ أقل شيء 10 أطلاق. الحاج كان ماكل طلقين، طلق في الصدر من الجهة اليمنى وطلق في الصدر من الجهة الأمامية.
The religious ideological struggle between Hamas and the Palestine Authority is hardly reported. A recent survey conducted by the Palestinian Journalist Association, MADA, claimed 80% of Palestinian journalists exercise self-censorship, fearing retribution.
Why is that?
We noticed that after the internal division between Fatah and Hamas in 2007 led to a dramatically increase of violations against Palestinian journalists. That's led journalists to exercise self-censorship. They didn't even cover some events which can endanger their lives, especially in the beginning of the division. We are trying to encourage journalists to put end for the self-censorship because it's reflects badly on Palestinian standards of journalism, and it also have negative impacts on freedom of expression in Palestine.
Next, we examine the common beliefs of radical Islam.
ISIS does believe that there's going to be a big showdown in Jerusalem, and Hamas believes the same thing.
Mainstream Islam believes its religion is a continuation and completion of all the prophets of God, including the Jewish Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses, as well as Christianity's Jesus, all leading to the Prophet Muhammad. The Dome of the Rock is the Islamic holy site where Hamas believes Jesus will return at the end of days. That's when Hamas believes a war to destroy the Jews will commence.
The Day of Judgment will not come about until Muslims fight Jews and kill them. The enemies have been scheming for a long time and have accumulated huge and influential material wealth. With their money, they took control of the world media. With their money, they stirred revolutions in various parts of the globe. They stood behind World War I and formed the League of Nations through which they could rule the world. They were behind World War II, through which they made huge financial gains. There is no war going on anywhere without them having their finger in it.
This theological tenet is shared by all radical Islamist movements like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Muhammad Ali Suleiman is a radical Islamist Egyptian cleric.
Muslims and Jews will fight until the Day of Judgment. It's a religious war between Muslims and Jews. They know that the war is going to happen and Muslims will be victorious. This is a hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him.
That religious war with the Jews, ushered in with Jesus' return, is also a cornerstone of ISIS ideology.
قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب وجعلني.
ISIS, which had conquered much of Syria and Iraq and established a radical Islamic State, has been the most powerful and feared of such movements. In its propaganda videos, Jesus' crucifixion in Holy Jerusalem is portrayed. For ISIS, like Hamas, the Christian Son of God and his second coming is transformed into a faithful follower of Islam who will confront the Antichrist, the Jews, and the unbelievers.
They all believe that one version or another of radical Islam is the answer to the political questions of the day. And that involves the return of the Prophet Jesus. It involves the reconquest of Jerusalem. They're talking about the same apocalypse, but it's really different in emphasis of timeline rather than place. ISIS does believe that there's going to be a big showdown in Jerusalem, and Hamas believes the same thing. What ISIS believes, though, is that this is going to happen quite soon. Hamas particularly wants independence. It wants a state of its own, and it wants a territory that's free of any Jews in particular. Whereas ISIS is looking at something that's on a global scale and really on almost a planetary scale. They want to have an Islamic State that really covers the earth and eventually brings about the apocalypse.
ISIS takes that theological war to the world. Like Hamas, it won't tolerate media that challenges its militant Islamist ideology, but it goes much further.
My message to my beloved parents: Save me some dignity and don't accept any meager compensation for my death.
To spread its message globally, ISIS employs shock tactics. ISIS threatens and kills the messenger, journalists like James Foley.
I wish I had more time. I wish I could have the hope of freedom and seeing my family once again. But that ship has sailed.
ISIS and al-Qaeda then attacked the media far beyond the Middle East. Radical Islamic gunmen killed 11 journalists in the Paris Charlie Hebdo attack for creating a caricature of the Prophet Muhammad. And true to radical Islamist theology, an ISIS accomplice then carried out the attack on the Jews. Ahmed Koulibaly killed 4 Jews at a Parisian kosher supermarket.
Vous attaquez la Khalifa, vous attaquez l'État islamique, on vous attaque. Vous ne pouvez pas attaquer et ne rien avoir en retour.
Just a month later, ISIS activist Omar el-Hussein stormed into a Copenhagen free speech conference. He shot and killed a cartoonist. Later that night came the attack on the Jews. El-Hussein opened fire on a bar mitzvah celebration and then killed a security guard. In similar ISIS fashion, a Hamas-inspired assailant butchered to death 4 ultra-Orthodox Jews and a policeman while praying at a Jerusalem synagogue.
They use the same methods, they're just as butcherous, they have the same overall political objectives, so I see very little difference between Hamas and the Islamic State. The Islamic State ultimately intend to establish a caliphate, and the stated objective of the Islamic State is also to attack and destroy Israel. Hamas, their very reason to exist is to attack and destroy Israel. That's what they want to do. And once they've done that, like the Islamic State, their intention is also to be involved in the establishment of an Islamic caliphate.
When we come back, ISIS expands into Egypt with Hamas support.
All of them use the same way of attracting people to their ideas. So I think there are many similarities between all these groups.
While implanting a terror foothold in Europe, ISIS expanded into Egypt, its Sinai desert.
إنما نحن جنود نحرق العار بنار سيفكم زال بفعلي برياح الانتصار إنما نحن جنود نحرق العار بنار
ISIS militias have been attacking Egyptians and the army. Just as Hamas sees the Palestine Secular Authority as an enemy, ISIS sees the secular Egyptian government as a foe. The Egyptian military has embarked on a massive counterattack against ISIS forces. Hamas has provided ISIS logistic support, weapons, and safe haven through tunnels, cutting under the Gaza-Egyptian border in Sinai.
The border between Egypt and Gaza is 13.8 kilometers. We discovered up to now 2,080 tunnels.
Retired General Samar al-Saif al-Ezer is a spokesperson for the Egyptian government.
Why is it so important to seal off Gaza and to shut down those tunnels?
We've seen smuggling weapons, ammunition. People come from the Gaza Strip to Sinai to help the thugs and terrorists to operate in Sinai against the police and against the people of Sinai as well as the army. That's all because of the tunnels. When we closed some of them, they come and reopen it. So actually out of the 2,080, we discovered 420 reopened.
The Egyptians see ISIS and Hamas as a common radical Islamist enemy.
They all based on Islamic virtues and values and principles in the beginning. They are trying to use Islam as a justification to a political project and also military project as well. All of them use the same instruments and the same strategies in, for example, collecting followers. All of them use the same way of attracting people to their ideas. So I think there are many similarities between all these groups.
As the Egyptian military battled ISIS in Sinai, ISIS opened a second front against Egypt, launching attacks from neighboring Libya.
Libya is 7 million people inhabitants, but they have 1,700 militia groups. It's very dangerous. Darna city, which is only less than 300 kilometers from our border, it's a Libyan city. They raised the black flag of ISIS, and they pay loyalty to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi a few months ago.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi established ISIS. He had declared himself as the ruler of a new caliphate, a new Muslim empire. What does a caliphate really mean for Muslims? Cairo's 1,100-year-old mosques stand in testament to the great caliphates. At that time, an Egyptian caliphate ruled all of North Africa and parts of the Middle East. Mainstream Muslims consider ISIS' self-declared caliphate as a blasphemy.
The period called the Golden Age of the Caliphate, the culture of that period was a very rich one, particularly featuring a great deal of translation of works from other languages into Arabic. Featuring a great deal of influence coming in from other communities other than the Muslim community, Jewish community, Christian communities, Zoroastrian community. So it was a period of great cultural efflorescence. And what people now associate with the Islamic State, this idea of having a single Muslim voice that will destroy everything that is not Islam. While it may attract people who are drawn to the atrocious nature of their deeds, it is nothing that you can find precedent for within the history of the Caliphate.
In ISIS propaganda films, Jesus as a prophet returns to break the cross, to destroy Christianity. Wherever ISIS has taken control, they have embarked on a war against Christians. Next, we meet Christians fighting ISIS.
They don't just want to kick us out, they want to kill us, and they are killing us.
Al-Qush is near the front line facing ISIS in northern Iraq. The village has become a source of inspiration for Iraqi and Syrian Christians. They have lived in the town for 2,000 years. In 2014, ISIS fighters overran Al-Kush, then Kurdish and Christian militias pushed them out.
Careful, brother. What's up, buddy? Marhaba. Hello.
Brett, an American Christian, has returned to Iraq to join the fight against ISIS.
No.
In 2006, he served in the U.S. Army and was severely wounded by a roadside bomb.
No, I've seen enough combat to last me a lifetime.
Why come back after all the time you served here and what you've seen? Isn't it too much?
I'm trying to do this in humanitarian grounds, trying to help out, to bring the worldview here, trying to help liberate cities, trying to help protect cities, and just it's a different mission this time, it is.
Brett joined a Christian Assyrian militia, Divik Nashwa, which means in Aramaic, self-sacrifice. Aramaic was the language spoken by Jesus Christ.
I feel better now. Whenever I have my gun, I come from a country where most people take for granted their freedoms. They don't understand what persecution is. In this part of the world, to be able to live free and practice your faith without being killed, it's huge. We frequently get mortared. ISIS likes to pitch attacks. They're cowards. They like to do it in low visibility, low moonlight, rain, fog, stuff like that. It's a different combat than what I'm used to because the enemies I fought before, I mean, they were soldiers, but these guys are cowards. There are a lot of kids here now. No, it's awesome.
What does this town mean for you?
This town signifies a victory. I mean, at one point, this town was completely abandoned, except for one person. Marhaba.
That person was Bassa Musafar. When ISIS occupied this town, miraculously she survived.
This will help give publicity.
Her house is a shrine to fallen Christians.
We love this house, and we love that she stayed with us.
This house is like church.
It is, honestly,
it's like
it is.
A Kurdish St. George kills the ISIS dragon.
Do you think this is a religious war?
I think it's become a religious war, yes, because the atrocities they're committing are based on their beliefs, and you know, we fight back, and we're doing so for our faith. We're doing so for our beliefs, just as Christ commanded us to. Marhaba. I mean, what's terrorism? Terrorism is a disruption of your daily life. These people are resilient. They've been able to say, hey, look, we know you're in the area, but we're not going to let you destroy our lives. You know, we'll stay here and we'll die for what we believe in.
These are the people Brett and his warriors are trying to protect, Assyrian Christians. They have survived despite numerous attempts to destroy them. ISIS brands them crusaders. The Crusaders were Christian armies that conquered the Holy Land in the Middle Ages.
We will overcome them. We will never leave. They're evil. They're murderers. They will not defeat us. We will defeat them.
ISIS calls Christians crusaders. How do you feel when they say you're a crusader?
Who was here before Islam? The Christians. The Assyrian Christian population is indigenous to this land. So to me, it just shows how ignorant they truly are and how uneducated they are too.
Syrian Christians have been here since Christianity started, way before Islam,
and way before the Crusaders. The Crusaders arrived at the 11th century and remained here for 200 years approximately. The other Christian groups in the area were here before and remained even after the Crusaders left.
ISIS recruiting videos consistently use the motif of Islamic warriors fighting the Crusaders, the Christian armies. It's a rallying call to join the Islamic State. Muslim warlords like Hassan is-Sabah became legendary heroes during the Crusader Wars.
There was a garden in the palace of Hassan is-Sabah. A recruit was led into the garden while he was intoxicated on hashish, and he was told, "This is a foretaste of paradise." And then later he would be told, "If you carry out an assassination, you will come back to this paradise." The legend of this kind of assassination became a major part of cultural construction of Islam in Western thought. The Islamic State is crafting its image and its propaganda and its video and media presentation specifically to intersect the fears and legends and mistaken opinions of Westerners.
The high-quality ISIS television production of the beheadings of 21 Christians in Libya is a case in point. ISIS addresses Christians as crusaders and once again raises the end of days, the return of Jesus Christ, who in their eyes will destroy Christianity, not resurrect it.
O crusaders, safety for you will be only wishes, especially when you're fighting us all together. Therefore, we will fight you all together until the war lays down its burdens and Jesus, peace be upon him, will descend, breaking the cross, killing the swine. We swear to Allah, we will mix it with your blood.
It would be a grave mistake to think that these people in Iraq and Syria who are devotees of the Islamic State are somehow primitive or backward or don't know what's going on in the world. I think they are very, very canny in understanding what they need to do to create maximum havoc in Western thought, because havoc in Western thought produces recruits.
This is Peter Edward Kasich, a US citizen of your country. Peter, who fought against the Muslims in Iraq while serving as a soldier under the American army, doesn't have much to say. The spark has been lit until it burns the Crusader army. And here we are, burying the first American Crusader in Durbak, eagerly waiting for the remainder of your armies to arrive.
They don't just want to kick us out, they want to kill us. And they are killing us. But Jesus said, before they hated you, they hated me. Before they persecute you, they persecuted me. And before they kill you, they've killed me. And it shows the resilience of the people here, and it sends a message to the whole world.
It's not only threatening the region, it's not only threatening the Arab world, it's threatening the entire world. And it's very dangerous, and it would be more dangerous soon. You're going to see more of that if the world will not really take the responsibility to face them seriously.
We will not stop fighting, we will not put down our weapons until we reach your lands, until we take the head of every tyrant, until we put the black flag on top of Buckingham Palace, until we put the black flag on top of the White House, and we will defeat you bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Takbir! Takbir! Islam!